Hello friends, I am Dr. Neelam Mahajan. I shall be discussing the manufacturing considerations of semi-solids today under your paper Product Development 1. In this module, we will learn about developing procedure for manufacture of production size batch and its major concerns. Then we will also learn about methods of manufacturing of ointments, evaluation of semi-solids, storage and packaging of semi-solids, and general cleaning instructions in semi-solid manufacturing. The first and foremost consideration in the manufacturing of semi-solids is to develop a procedure for manufacture of production size batch and to look after its major concerns. The pilot plant or small scale production is essential in developing a manufacturing procedure for a production size batch. It involves preparation of many batches ranging in size from 2.5 to 25 or more kilograms for product evaluation and clinical testing. It helps to observe, correct or improve the effects of minor but important variations in the manufacturing technique or formula. Mixing, high speed, agitation, aeration and rheological changes are some of the major concerns which are to be looked after while developing this procedure. Mixing and stirring operations are the first major concern in developing a procedure for manufacture of production size batch. These operations are critical in the preparation of emulsions, and in the laboratory these operations can be carefully controlled in 0.5 or 1 kilogram batches of finished product. The electrically operated propeller type mixer can be manually adjusted and positioned in the laboratory mixing vessel to achieve maximum turbulence. The angle of entry of the propeller shaft and the depth of the propeller can be easily varied in the laboratory to prevent aeration. A metal spatula can be held or positioned in the beaker during mixing to serve as a baffle to increase turbulence without entrapping air. Similar maneuverability and control of the mixing action is more limited with larger stationary equipment used for the manufacture of semi-solids. Then the second major concern in developing the procedure for manufacturing of production size batch is high speed agitation. It may introduce air into the product and slow mixing may not form a satisfactory emulsion. Such problems occur in large scale manufacture but would not be apparent in small 1 or 2 kg batches for which a beaker and a laboratory mixer are used. Small scale equipment similar to the production models can approximate production conditions. It may not be possible to predict the exact mixing time and rotational speed of the agitator, but the overall processing characteristics can be ascertained if identical mixers are used. The third major concern while developing procedure for manufacturing of production size batch is aeration. Aeration of the semi-solid should be avoided since it may lead to emulsion instability and weight variation of the ointment or cream in its container due to intra-batch variation in density. Entrainment of air can occur during mixing, homogenizing or milling stages, during the transfer of the product to storage or filling equipment, and during filling or packaging operation. Aeration may be prevented at the primary emulsion step if one phase is introduced into the other in a manner so as to avoid splashing and streaming. The incoming liquid should enter the mixing chamber below the surface of the other liquid. Vortexing and splashing are overcome by careful adjustment of the mixing conditions and liquid flow pattern. A closed system prevents aeration of the product during homogenization or milling and when the material is transferred to the storage tanks, vessels or hoppers of the filling machines. When an auger device is used in the hopper to deliver the material to the tube or jar at the filling outlet, The hopper must be kept full of the product or the rotation of the auger will drive air into the semi-solid. Completely enclosed kettles are available for the manufacture of semi-solids which tend to aerate excessively. The sealed vessels can be operated under vacuum. Mixing and emulsification can then be performed without entrainment of air. Loss of moisture and volatile substances may present problems, however, because of the vacuum. The third major concern while developing a procedure for manufacturing of production size batch is rheological changes. Homogenization frequently increases the consistency of a semi-solid emulsion because it increases the number of emulsified particles. It can also have the opposite effect, that of decreasing the viscosity of the product owing to an electrolyte effect. Some products retain their viscosity if they are not homogenized. Consistency also is affected by the number of passes through the homogenizer. The pressures used for homogenization with the valve type homogenizer or the clearance between rotor and stator if a colloid mill is used. Some commercial creams are sensitive to agitation and stress. The continuous rotation of an auger in the hopper of the filling machine may cause a cream to liquefy. Such creams may be made more resistant to agitation by a formula change. However, the soft and easy spreading properties of the cream on the skin may then be lost. The replacement of the auger by another gentler feeding device is valuable. Friends, after learning how to take care of the major concerns during the development of a procedure for the manufacturing of a production size batch, now I switch over to the methods of manufacturing of ointments. Ointment preparation or manufacture aims at dispersing the drug uniformly throughout the vehicle and depends on the type of vehicle and the quantity to be prepared. Normally, the drug materials are either in finely powdered form or in solution before being dispersed in the vehicle. Let us discuss the first method of preparing ointments, that is leviation. The incorporation of a drug powder in small quantities of an ointment, that is 30 to 90 grams, can be accomplished by using a spatula and an ointment tile, which can be either porcelain or glass. The drug material is levigated thoroughly with a small quantity of the vehicle or a miscible liquid component of the formulation to form a concentrate. The concentrate then is diluted geometrically with the remainder of the base. Water soluble drug can be dissolved in water and this aqueous solution incorporated into the vehicle by using an amount of anhydrous lanolin equal in volume to the amount of water if the base is oleaginous. On a larger scale, mechanical mixers are used. Finely divided drug is added slowly or sifted into the vehicle in the rotating mixer for uniform dispersion. The finished product may be passed through a roller mill to ensure complete dispersion and reduce any aggregates. An alternative procedure involves preparing and milling a concentrate of the drug in a portion of the base. The concentrate then is dispersed in the balance of the vehicle using a mixer of appropriate size. Occasionally, the base may be melted for easier handling and dispersing. In such cases, the drug is dispersed and the base slowly cooled using continuous agitation to maintain dispersion. Switching over to the second method of preparing ointments, that is emulsification. The oil soluble ingredients are combined and their admixture is heated to about 75 degrees Celsius to allow melting of oil phase ingredients like fats and waxes. The water soluble ingredients are combined separately and heated to slightly above 75 degrees Celsius. The aqueous phase is then added to the oil phase slowly and with constant agitation. When the emulsion is formed, slow agitation is done to allow it to cool. During this time, Medicinal ingredients usually are added as a concentrated slurry milled to reduce any particle aggregates. Volatile or aromatic materials generally are added when the finished emulsion has cooled to about 35 degrees Celsius. Additional water may be added to compensate for any evaporative loss or otherwise during emulsion formation. The product remains in the tank in bulk. During this time, quality control procedures are performed. If control results are satisfactory, the product is filled into the appropriate containers. After having discussed emulsification and levication methods for preparing ointments, now it is time to discuss another very important method called as fusion method. Anhydrous ointments are manufactured by this method. The active substance is dissolved in the melted fats and waxes or in one of the components of the vehicle and then mixed with the base. The melted mass must be mixed while cooling because the fatty alcohols, fatty acids and waxes do not form true solutions with petrolatum and mineral oil, but crystallize from the melt as the temperature falls. The major concerns of the fusion method will be discussed further. The first major concern of fusion method for manufacturing of ointments is preparation of oily and aqueous phases. The components of the oily phase are placed into a stainless steel steam jacketed kettle, molten and mixed. Solid components like stearic acid, cetyl alcohol are available in forms like cakes, flakes or powder. The flakes are preferred due to convenience of handling. The powder may have occasional fine metal contaminants from the pulverizing equipment. Petrolatum is melted and transferred by pumping or pouring from its drum. Transfer of large quantities of petrolatum is expedited by heating the petrolatum in the steel drum in which it is received from the supplier by means of immersion heaters or by placing the drums in a hot room until petrolatum is flowed. The oil phase is then strained through several layers of cloth for removal of foreign matter. The petrolatum can be passed through a filter medium for preparing an ophthalmic preparation. The oil phase is transferred by gravity or pump to the emulsion mixing kettle with walls heated to the temperature of oily phase. This prevents some of its higher melting components from congealing. The components of the aqueous phase are dissolved in the purified water and filtered. A soluble drug may be added to the aqueous phase at this time provided the high temperature does not degrade the active substance or the emulsion is not adversely affected. Otherwise, the soluble drug may be added in solution after the emulsion has formed and has cooled. The oily and aqueous phases are usually mixed at a temperature of 70 to 72 degrees Celsius, leading to intimate mixing of the liquid phases. The initial mixing temperature must be raised above 70 to 72 degrees Celsius because intimate mixing of the components at monolayer levels cannot occur since emulsion that forms immediately has a high viscosity. The phase mixing temperature can be lowered a few degrees if the melting point of the fat phase is low enough to prevent premature crystallization or congealing of its components. Decreasing the temperature at which the phases are mixed decreases the cooling time, a significant factor for large batches. The properties of some emulsions depend on the temperature at which the phases are mixed. The oily and aqueous phases can be mixed in one of the three ways. The first way is simultaneous blending of the phases by using a proportioning pump and a continuous mixer satisfactory for continuous or large batch operation. Second way is by adding the discontinuous phase to the continuous phase for emulsion systems with a low volume of dispersed phase. And the third way involves addition of the continuous phase to the discontinuous phase preferred for many emulsion systems since the emulsions undergo an inversion of the emulsion type during the addition of the continuous phase, which results in a finer dispersed phase globule. The dispersed or aqueous phase in oil and water emulsion is added slowly to the inner phase with agitation. The initial low concentration of water in relation to the concentration of oil results in the formation of a water in oil emulsion. The viscosity of the emulsion continues to increase as more water is added, and the volume of the oil phase also increases up to a point of its maximum expansion. Beyond this point, the viscosity decreases and emulsion inversion is said to occur. The phases reverse themselves and the inner phase is finally dispersed. Batch sizes are on a weight basis which is independent of variations in temperature and density. To measure the weight in a kettle, load cells are placed onto the basis of the manufacturing kettle. The kettle exerts a pressure on the cell which is transmitted by means of a hydraulic force exerted by a layer of oil seated on a diaphragm and can be read on a dial or recorded. After preparing oily and aqueous phases and mixing them in the prescribed manner, then the semi-solid emulsion has to be cooled. We will be discussing cooling the semi-solid emulsion. Following the addition of phases, the rate of cooling is generally slow to allow for adequate mixing while the emulsion is still liquid. The temperature of the cooling medium in the kettle jacket should be decreased gradually and at a rate consistent with the mixing of the emulsion and scraping of the kettle walls to prevent formation of congealed masses of the ointment or cream, especially when the semi-solid contains a large percentage of high melting substances. Aeration may occur if the semi-solid thickens considerably upon cooling, and steps should be taken to prevent this. Perfume should be added to an oil in water emulsion when the mixture is at a temperature of 43 to 45 degrees Celsius. This avoids chilling of the emulsion and facilitates dissolution of the perfume oil in the still incompletely congealed oily phase. The perfume may be added near room temperature to a water in oil emulsion since dissolution of the perfume oils is to occur in the outer phase of the system. The drug is added in solution form if not already incorporated or as crystals, provided it is soluble in the external phase. An insoluble powder should be dispersed in the continuous phase prior to removing the semi-solid from the kettle for homogenization or storage. The cooling of the semi-solid stored in a large covered vessel is not uniform since cooling is more rapid at the surface or walls of the container. Hence, variation in physical properties of the semi-solid may occur, such as differences in the size of the fat and wax crystals and dispersed globules. Adjustment of the final water content of a water in oil emulsion is not easy once the emulsion has been formed. Several batch runs help to determine the amount of water lost on heating in the particular process, and this lost water should be added to the required amount at the start of manufacture. The oil film surrounding each emulsified water droplet in a water in oil emulsion tends to retard evaporation so that water loss is not excessive following this type of emulsification. Now we will discuss the importance of low energy emulsification. The amount of thermal and mechanical energy expended in the production of emulsions should be limited due to its high cost. The use of a minimum amount of the emulsion phase in the emulsification stage can considerably reduce energy requirements and processing time without compromising the quality of the product. The major cost saving is achieved by heating both the oily phase and a portion of water or external phase to the required temperature to form a concentrated emulsion. The balance of the aqueous phase is added at room temperature during the cooling state. Thus, the energy used to heat the aqueous phase and mechanical energy of mixing during cooling stage is reduced. The quality, stability, rheological properties and the particle size distribution of the internal phase of the finished product prepared by this process depend on several variables. These include temperature required for forming the concentrated emulsion, ratio of external to internal phase forming the concentrated emulsion, the phase inversion temperature, the type and intensity of mixing, and the rate of addition of external phase. Now we will discuss homogenization, which is required for further treatment of creams or ointments. The creams or ointments that require further treatment are transferred or pumped to proper homogenizer, the selection of which is governed by the degree and rate of shear stress required. Uniform dispersion of an insoluble drug in a semi-solid as well as reduction of the size of the fatty aggregates can be attained by the passage of the warm ointment or cream through a homogenizer or mill. The choices include a low shear gear pump, a roller mill, a colloid mill, a valve type homogenizer and a suitable sonic homogenizer. Friends, now we will discuss the evaluation of semi-solids. The first evaluation test is for extrudability and spreadability of semi-solids. Ease with which semi-solid comes out from tube or pack is designated as extrudability. In-house tests are available for its evaluation. In-house tests are again available for evaluating spreadability of the ointments. In spreadability test, a small quantity of ointment is placed between two slides, one of which is movable. Force is applied to movable slide and the corresponding distance travelled is recorded. Graphical plots between applied force and distance travelled indicate spreadability. Force required making the ointment move out or extrude through uncapped tube placed below the plunger is a test of extrudability of the semi-solids. The third evaluation test is for in vitro permeation. The principal in vitro technique for studying skin penetration involves use of some variety of a diffusion cell in which animal or human skin is fastened to a holder and the passage of compounds from the epidermal surface to a fluid bath is measured. The simplicity of methods and equipments ranges from just stretching human skin over the mouth of a funnel to using special glass chambers like Franz diffusion cell. The penetration rates can be quantitated particularly by radioactive measurements. The area of spread of radioactive agent on the surface is detected with autoradiographs, allowing expression in terms of quantity per unit area per unit time. Radioactive agents have not yet taken over completely. Many chemical agents penetrate in sufficient concentration to be determined by one or other techniques of physical or chemical analysis. More recently, model systems have been used that do not use membranes. Solvents like alcohol water have been utilized as models chosen to have negligible solubility in the phase representing the skin, but in which the drug is fairly soluble. A receptor phase or sink is used to receive the penetrant. Chloroform and isopropyl myristate have served as sinks. Since they are immiscible with alcohol water, it is not necessary to introduce an artificial membrane to separate these sinks from the vehicles. The important factors influencing the release into the receptor phase are solubility in the vehicle and partition coefficient of the drug between vehicle and receptor phase. Optimal release is obtained from vehicles containing minimum concentration of solvent required for complete solubilization of the drug. Next evaluation is for irritation, that is the irritation test. Allergy or irritation due to a specific ointment base is more frequent and more important. Hence, a number of test procedures have been devised to test irritancy level of an ointment formulation. Irritation potential of formulation is evaluated in vitro. HET CAM test on eggs, in vivo, Drey's dermal irritation test on rabbits, and in humans, Drey's Shelansky repeat insult patch test. The test should be thorough and well designed. They should include human patch test, eye irritation studies, determination of minimum lethal dose on at least 2 animal species, and chronic toxicity studies. Next is the in vivo methods of evaluation. The major in vivo methods are histological techniques, use of tracers, analysis of body tissues and fluids, and elicitation of a biological response. Tissue changes in skin following the application of various substances to the cutaneous surface can yield information about the specific tissue affected, so that not only absorption per se is revealed, but also the route of penetration. The method is limited to dyes and to a small number of other substances that yield perceivable colored end products with specific chemical reactions. The penetration of dyes, fluorescence, and radioactive labeling represent the most widespread tracer methods. The studies are always combined with other techniques like histological or chemical analysis of tissues or fluids. While radioactive methods give information on the amount of the compound that moves across the skin, they yield little or no information on the route of penetration or on localization of penetrant within the structure of the skin. Next method is urine analysis. It is by far the most frequently used method. Although the urinary method is extremely valuable, caution is indicated since the recovered agent will not necessarily be the original material or the amount needed to penetrate the skin. Some of the applied agents may have gone elsewhere than into the urine. Some may have been metabolized and therefore may no longer be detectable. A steady state between absorption and excretion needs to be reached before measurements can be accepted. The use of topical agents that elicit a physiological reaction when they reach dermis makes it possible to demonstrate not only penetration but also the time required for a reaction to occur. The method is intriguing because it is simple and has practical applications. For example, responses like sweat secretion, vasoconstriction, vasodilation, pigmentation, and vascular permeability can be recorded with reasonable accuracy by visual observation. Various methods have been used for studying in vitro and in vivo percutaneous absorption. There are 3 variables in all the methods: application of the medicament, apparatus, and measurement of the medicament. The combination of these variables leads to numerous methods, and comparisons between investigations is difficult. So friends, after having learnt about the development of a procedure for the manufacturing of production size batch of semi-solid and settling its major concerns, followed by the evaluation of semi-solids, it is equally important for us to learn about the storage of semi-solids. Unless rapid in-process methods of analysis are developed, it is the usual practice to store the semi-solids until the specified quality control tests have been completed before packing them into appropriate containers like tubes, jars, or single dose packets. A product is considered to be in process until it has been packaged. These preliminary quality control tests are time consuming and delay the packaging process. However, it is less costly to wait for the assay and to store the material until it can be scheduled for filling than to package and then perhaps be compelled to empty the containers to recover the materials in case the semi-solid fails to meet the established specifications for the product. Some semi-solids have a tendency to set up or exhibit an increase of viscosity on storage and such products cannot be stored for any length of time. The industrial pharmacist must be aware of the delays caused by quality control requirements and packaging schedules so that he/she can develop formulations that tolerate storage in bulk without undergoing significant changes in consistency which might cause filling problems. The active substance in the cream or ointment may react with the storage container unless a highly resistant stainless steel is used for bulk storage. Evaporation of water from a cream must be retarded. This can be effectively accomplished by placing non-reactive plastic sheeting in direct contact with the cream as well as covering the storage container with a tight-fitting stainless steel lid. While transferring the semi-solid material for packaging, there are certain considerations to be kept into mind. The semi-solid may be gravity fed if it is a two-level operation or pumped to the filling equipment. It must be able to resist the shear stress developed in the transfer of the product as well as that due to the mechanical action of the filling equipment. Once a formal manufacturing procedure has been established, there should be no deviation from it. If a change is necessary, however, the problem should be carefully re-evaluated first in research and development laboratory and then at the pilot plant and manufacturing level. Now, although the design and evaluation of semi-solids usually does not include equipment cleaning operation following manufacturing and filling of the product, it is mandatory that the cleaning operation be thorough to avoid any contamination between batches. Cleaning of large scale equipment is facilitated and labor costs and downtime of equipment can be reduced through the use of high pressure low volume pump systems now available. The cutting force of high pressure hot water that may contain detergent can be applied like a knife edge to clean difficult to reach tight spots inside kettles and tanks, and a variety of manufacturing and processing equipment, eliminating old-fashioned manual scrubbing. Homogenizers, pumps and filling equipment that have areas wherein pockets of water or product may accumulate and that are ordinarily inaccessible must be completely disassembled, cleaned, sanitized and dried before reassembly. Ball valves and sanitary type or sanitary threaded piping should be used throughout. The packing material used as lubricant for the shafts of mixers should also be replaced during the cleanup process if there is any possibility that they may harbor microorganisms. The manufacturing and packaging equipment should be sanitized following thorough cleaning with detergents. They should be flushed with chlorinated water, formalin or other suitable sterilant followed by a bacteria-free water rinse. Water and swab samples should be taken to verify microbial elimination. So friends, today we learned to take care of major concerns of developing a procedure for manufacturing of production size batches and various methods of manufacturing of ointments. We also learned that the semi-solids so manufactured are evaluated for different parameters. Furthermore, we also learned storage and packaging concerns along with general cleaning instructions in semi-solid manufacturing. Thank you.